Elk leaned back in his favorite chair and felt something pop before sitting back up. He liked this spot in the bar because it allowed him to see the diverse array of races coming and going. Some patrons even sought his advice. As an old spacer, his knowledge of this sector was vast. It was said he had visited almost every system and most inhabited planets in his 170 galactic years. Some of the younger patrons would ask him for stories of his adventures, but he was tired of traveling and had settled down on this station orbiting the planet Miasma. Thus, he was only slightly surprised when a tall, reptilian-like alien approached him. The being looked familiar, but he couldn't quite identify its race. It was at least 2.12 meters tall, with 4 muscular arms, bipedal, and a torso covered in tough, leather-like plates. Its head was triangular with a blunt face featuring 6 eyes, a pair of nostrils, and a wide mouth filled with dozens of small but sharp-looking teeth, including 8 pronounced fangs, 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. It wore only boots, a type of pants, and a utility harness on its torso. "You are Gelc of the Though," the alien stated bluntly. Gelc stared up at the tall being before replying, "I am. And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?" "I am Basem of the Cuter," he answered. "Ah yes, the Cuter," Gelc remembered now, his mind searching for what he knew about them. No wonder he didn't recognize them. They were rarely seen outside their body armor and enclosed helmets. They were a warlike race from near the rim, appearing in this sector 20 years ago by raiding the outer worlds. 5 years after that, they carved themselves a foothold in the sector at the expense of the FT. Without asking, the Cuter sat down next to Gelc. "I understand you know many things about this sector," Basem stated bluntly and directly. Gelc thought for a moment before answering, "Yes, I am well-traveled." "Good. You will come with me," Basem added. Taken aback, Gelc replied, "Why in the hell would I do that?" "To meet my superiors." "You will be well compensated," Basem said. "Getting paid does change things," Gelc thought to himself. "And how far would I have to go?" he asked. Basem promptly replied, "Compartment 10, Level 1. So here, and in one of the first-class quarters." "Interesting," Gelc thought before replying, "Lead on." It took about 10 minutes to reach the compartment. When the door opened, Gelc was slightly surprised to see just how many Cuter were inside. Maybe 11 of them. After studying them for a moment, he concluded that 6 were guards. Unlike Basem, they wore a variety of garments that concealed their bodies. It suddenly occurred to Gelc that, since they were rarely seen without their helmets and body armor, they were essentially in disguise and able to move about freely without anyone being the wiser. He started to wonder just how many Cuter were hiding in plain sight across the sector. Basem stepped forward and bowed. "This is Gelc of Thura, as ordered, Your Majesty." Basem stepped aside so the others could see Gelc. Finding out he was meeting royalty caught him off guard, but he managed to recover. He gave a bow and spoke, "Your Majesty," and then added, "I apologize, but I do not know who is who." A richly dressed Cuter stepped forward. "I am in Ubasa Vestas, to Empress Sherpu, second wife of Emperor Anunnaki I," he said while using a sweeping gesture to the Empress. Gelc turned and bowed to the Empress. "My apologies, Your Majesty, for not knowing who you were." The Empress gave a regal nod of her head. To be honest, Gelc couldn't tell the difference between male and female Cuter. Or were they all female, he wondered. Another Cuter stepped forward. "Grand Strategist Anag Kashana," he introduced himself. The Grand Strategist stepped forward and pushed a button on the console, causing a map of the sector to appear with political boundaries marked on it. "We are embarking on a new campaign, and we need information about races that might be involved. What their military capabilities are, who their allies are, and which are their most important worlds," he said. Gelc was shocked by the request and, without thinking, uttered, "I can't do that. Help you kill an untold number of sentients." Empress Sherpu nodded solemnly. Inesa stepped forward as the Empress addressed him. "The Empress understands your reluctance and offers a compensation of 2 million galactic credits." Gelc almost fell over from shock. With that amount, he could almost buy his own station. Not a big one, but still. After wrestling with his conscience, he agreed to the proposal. The Empress nodded in satisfaction. Grand Stratego Inag Kusana pointed to an area on the map. We plan to attack these Hammonds and absorb their territory into our empire. We've heard rumors that they do not maintain a large fleet and are afraid of war, expecting them to negotiate their way out of it. Gelc stared at them in horror. You mean to attack the humans? He took care to pronounce it correctly for them. Yes, in 2 standard months, the Grand Stratego informed him. After regaining his composure, Gelc said, no one in their right mind attacks the humans. Grand Stratego and Nag Kasana laughed. Why is that? They barely have a dozen systems, and we have thousands. What kind of threat could a race afraid to fight pose to us? Ask the Tarion, Gelc muttered, not intending for the Crix to hear, but their hearing was better than he knew. Who are these Tarion? How can we contact them? By summoning their ghosts, Gelc thought to himself. You can't. They are extinct in this sector, and there are only rumors of small drifter fleets of survivors never staying in one place too long. And these humans are responsible? They likely defeated some minor power with only a few planets. Are we supposed to be afraid of them? Grand Stratego and Nag Kasana scoffed. Gelc replied, over 80 galactic years ago, the Tarion controlled most of this sector, indicating a large area on the map. They ruled 138 systems, with 600 habitable planets and moons, and hundreds more with vast resources, including the dead rock we currently orbit. For a moment, Gelc thought he saw doubt on some of their faces, but he wasn't familiar enough with them to be sure. Grand Stratego and Nag Kasana was not one of them. We are the Cutter and fear no one, especially a race afraid of war, even if they won one decades ago. Go on with your explanation as to why we shouldn't attack them, he said. The Empress spoke, and all the Cutter seemed shocked. Your Majesty, this alien is not worthy to hear you speak, Inesa exclaimed. Grand Stratego and Nag Kasana added, Your Majesty, forgive me, but as Second Empress, you are only here in a ceremonial role. With a glare, the Empress addressed them both. That is usually so, but I feel this is important enough for the Emperor to hear all of it, and not just selected tidbits. Would you like me to contact my husband, the Emperor, and see how he responds to my break in ceremony, especially after I tell him how you are ignoring the Earth's warning? I like this one, Gelc thought to himself. Both of the Cutter acquiesced to the Empress. She looked back at Gelc. Please continue, she ordered. Yes, Your Majesty, Gelc bowed and replied. The humans are not afraid of war because of what an enemy may do. Humans are afraid of what it can make them become. I had a human friend long ago who explained it to me. Like you, the Tarion saw them as easy pickings, Gelc explained. The humans were new to the galactic community and had just started to expand out of their home system. When the Tarion found out how much time had passed between the humans' first steps into space and their eventual departure from their home system, almost 2 centuries, they assumed humans weren't very smart. Gelc continued, I found out from my friend later that it took humans so long to leave their cradle because they had been warring amongst themselves almost the entire time. The Empress spoke up again. So they were fighting a civil war that whole time? No, Your Majesty. They were never a single government in the first place. They only formed one after discovering that other races existed. A damaged ship inadvertently fell out of FTL in their system. The crew was dead, so the only source of information was the ship. They examined it and reverse-engineered what they found, mixed with their own technology, Gelc added. It had long been a dream of humans to find life outside their world, so they were ecstatic to meet other races. They explored, traded, and shared knowledge freely. So they were caught off guard when a Tarion fleet entered their home system and attacked without warning. The humans suffered enormous casualties at first, but they weren't helpless. They'd fought wars among themselves for almost their entire existence and were very good at it, though they were comparatively novices at deep space combat. It took them months to drive the invaders out, and the cost was high for both sides. Gelc paused. I've heard rumors that Tarion survivors were traumatized by their later engagements with the humans, especially the ground forces. As a departing act of defiance, the Tarion launched a missile containing a biological weapon at Earth, the human cradle world. My human friend told me it caused an ecological disaster on their planet. Vast swaths of their planet became sterile. The biological agents were less effective against humans than the Tarion hoped. The humans had a long history of dealing with virulent and deadly diseases, which helped protect them from the biological agents. It just made them sick, but only killed the weakest of them, Gelc explained. The tragedy that befell the Tarion had devastating effects, particularly on their youngest children. My friend Gelc narrated the harrowing tale, explaining that while the initial invasion might have been something they could forgive, as they had dealt with similar conflicts internally, the ecological devastation of their world could have warranted a retaliatory expedition of equivalent damage. However, the Tarian slaughter of millions of their children was an atrocity beyond forgiveness. Gelc described the deep-seated rage this act incited. Most races have a few words to express revenge, but humans have dozens, each reflecting a different facet of their vengeful nature. Vendetta, revenge, reckoning, retribution, reprisals, retaliation, vengeance, eye for an eye, and vindictive behavior, to name a few. Yet, the Tarians' heinous actions triggered the most dreadful form of human retribution, blood vengeance. According to human philosophy, the Tarians' crime could only be answered with their blood, and lots of it. A human friend of Gelc elaborated on the dark nature of humanity. Humans harbor a primal darkness within their souls, a force they continually struggle to suppress. When this darkness overtakes an individual, it can ruin dozens of lives. However, when it overwhelms an entire race, it unleashes unimaginable horrors. Gelc's friend had shown him human history, revealing atrocities so shocking that even Gelc, who had seen much in his lifetime, was horrified. These atrocities were committed against their own kind, leading to an even greater fear of what they might do to an alien race. The Tarians' actions had unleashed the worst aspects of human nature. Consumed by grief and rage, the humans descended into a collective madness. They merged captured Tarion technology with their own, creating warships as black as night with wings that gave them the appearance of nightmarish birds. Their body armor was jet black, and their helmets were stylized into monstrous faces, incorporating fears from both human and Tarion nightmares. This psychological warfare targeted their enemies' minds, making their deepest fears manifest. The Tarion survivors were left traumatized, unable to understand the human methods of war, which involved deception, mind games, and striking unexpectedly. When the human fleets emerged from their territories, they did so with a terrifying roar, leaving destruction in their wake. They annihilated both military and civilian targets, sparing nothing Tarion. Entire colonies were obliterated, and they used nuclear fire and mass drivers to hurl asteroids at Tarion worlds, ensuring complete devastation. The humans did not bother to garrison conquered worlds. Instead, they left them in ruins, making it difficult for the Tarion to predict their next moves. On occasion, the humans stayed behind to ambush arriving Tarion ships, leaving wreckage orbiting desolate worlds. After 5 years of relentless war, the humans surrounded the Tarion homeworld. The Empress, listening to Gelc's story, asked about the fate of this world. Gelc pointed out the window, revealing that they were in orbit around it. The humans had renamed it Miasma after the war, a grim reminder of the atrocities committed. Once their children were avenged, the humans recoiled in horror at their deeds. They recognized the genocide they had perpetrated, a word that in their history carried immense hatred. This crime now stained their entire race. They withdrew, abandoning all but their core systems. Before leaving, they named the Tarion homeworld Miasma, symbolizing a guilt so deep it tainted their very blood. Annually, they marked the fall of the Tarion homeworld with solemn remembrance, not celebration, as a reminder of their atrocity. Gelc noted that the humans' aversion to war was not for their own protection, but to shield others from their potential for destruction. While the Empress understood this, others, like Grand Stratego and Shag Kasana, remained unconvinced of the humans' might. Reflecting on the past, Gelc recalled how 3 years prior, he had warned the Kyuds against attacking humans and killing their children. Now, they were losing the war badly, with only 21 of their original 138 systems remaining. Many systems had broken away to form a new empire allied with the humans, led by a wise empress who had heeded Gelc's advice. Her husband, however, had allowed Grandstro and Shag Kasana to provoke the humans by attacking civilian colonies. The empress then reached out to the humans, proposing an alliance and offering safety to fleeing civilians and surrendering military personnel. She even promised to hand over those responsible for the atrocities for trial. Gelc eagerly anticipated seeing Grandstro and Shag Kasana brought to justice.